Welcome in, everybody, to Betting Pros. It's time to place your bets. It is me, Joey P, Joe Pisapia, and this is BP NFL. It's time to look ahead to the props for Week 5 in the NFL, and we're going to call some touchdowns as well. But, of course, let me bring in, before we even begin, my two boys here, Mr. Welsh and Mr. Erickson, the Undertaker. Andrew, the best pick you've made all year is picking Pat Fitzmaurice to pick for you last week. 4-1 for Fitzy last week on the program. Gotta love that pinch hit. So, Andrew, it's time to now follow that up. Are you prepared to follow up Fitzy?
Well, I haven't read Fitz's prop article yet that he posts every week, so I don't feel as confident making my picks without having that to my side. But again, just a reason to go check that article out that Fitz does every single week because the guy knows his stuff. So hopefully I can at least finish 3-2 this week.
Speaking of 3-2, Welsh was 3-2 last week, and just looking through the Betting Pros app, I am, let's see, plus 53% ROI, 7-5 last week. So let's go with a $63 profit there on the Betting Pros. This is why you follow us, folks. You try to get in there. Look, we're gonna have some bad weeks. We're gonna have some good weeks. This is the nature of the beast. And also, when it comes to touchdown calls, 50% on the year right here. Just got my fourth one last year here on the show. We each picked two at the end. Make sure you stick around. Welsh, you're up first today for the props, so let's talk about yours. And you're going to begin with Tony Pollard, and the number is 69.5. So which direction are you going?
We are going to nicely go under. We are going to kick it off with an under. This was a smash under. And I'll tell you right now, line's already moving. Since I took it, the line has moved down to 67. People can't smash that number ninth. They cannot. The Cardinals, which Tony Pollard is going up against, Cardinals are currently 9th in yards allowed on the ground in the NFL. So they're giving up the 9th least rushing yards. Through 4 games, only one running back has eclipsed 69 yards, and that was Ken Walker. Pollard has only hit this in 1 game this year while seeing his carries decrease 3 straight weeks. We've got the looming Spears situation. PFF projections around 58. Fantasy Pros, I think, is around 61. Everything is under this number. We are just seeing the steady decline. There was a lot of just volume talk around Tony Pollard, but inefficiency as well. So, defensively, the Cardinals are in a good spot. I think with the decreased carries in general, I love this under, and you know me, I don't love unders, and I'm going to start the show with one, but I instantly smashed this one. It's going to keep going down. I probably play it to 65. I think projections would even tell you to go a little bit more, but my comfort level would be there. So 69.5 is what I get to lock in, and you can even check that over on Betting Pros because that is where I have got that. So under is my first play of the day, boys.
Shout out to everybody watching on YouTube also. We just hit 70,000 subscribers. We appreciate you. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe. Or even if you're not watching, go subscribe anyway to the feed here. Again, we're trying to get to 100,000, so we just keep on climbing. We appreciate everybody who's watching on the YouTube. All right, Andrew Erickson, let's get your first pick of Week 5 in.
I am not going with an under, but it's a trend that has to do with underdog. So I'm going to go with Bo Nix going over 15.5 rushing yards. And the trend that I was alluding to was Bo Nix runs significantly more when his team is losing and he's an underdog in the specific matchup. So in the last 11 games where the Broncos have been underdogs entering the contest, he's gone over 15.5 rushing yards in 9 of those contests. He's gone over this number straight up in 3 of his 4 games this season. The one game that he didn't go over was last week, when they were heavy favorites against the Cincinnati Bengals. So when they're protecting a comfortable lead, Bo Nix doesn't run, but against the Philadelphia Eagles, where maybe they're going to be in more trailing game script, I expect Bo Nix to use his legs. So I'm going to go over on 15.5 rushing yards for the Broncos quarterback.
All right, so Andrew Erickson starting with an over, Welsh starting with an under. What's happening here? Upside down is officially here upon us. Welsh, walk me through pick number 2 for Week 5. It has to do with Omarion Hampton's rushing yards. Now, look, we've got not 1 but 2 tackles out now for the Chargers. We know we lost Slater here at the beginning of the year. Now Joe Alt dealing with a high ankle sprain. So how does that affect Omarion Hampton for you this week?
Well, I mean, volume is the thing that pushes us in the positive for him. I'd also say this is outside of just my notes, but explosive plays. Omarion Hampton obviously can get, he had like 100 explosive yards, 25% percentage of explosive yards come into play for him. So, I mean, like, he can make the big plays, but obviously you're going to have like a general worry about some of the offensive line coming down. But as a starter last week, he saw 92% of the team's rush attempts, and he played 87.5% of the snaps. By the way, the line we're looking at here for Omarion Hampton is rushing yards at 65.5. This is slowly creeping. It was at 64.5, which, by the way, our friends at Hard Rock Bet have the best line. Had that. It is slowly moving up, so go and check that out. Hampton average, so this would be come back to the offensive line. He averaged 6.67 yards before contact last week. So that could speak a little bit to the offensive line worry. Like, obviously the explosive play plays into that a bit, but you're like, wow, 6.67, that's elite. That's the offensive line doing work. If they lose that, that's a little bit of a negative. Well, he also averaged 4 yards, over 4 yards after contact. So big play there, whether it's the offensive line helping out or him breaking away. Commanders so far this year, they're giving up on average 24 carries to running backs. And remember, 92% of the team's rush attempts went to Hampton last week, which, by the way, might be a rush attempt bet for you guys. And 81 yards on average they're giving up to running backs. With 3 of the first 4 games this season, running backs have beat this rushing projection. The projected numbers, whether you go to, I always like to cite PFF versus us as well. I like both of ours. Fantasy Pros projections, a high number, and the PFF number is also well over this. Fantasy Pros aggregate projection is around 81 yards rushing. So get on this early while you can if you believe it. There obviously could be some worries about the offensive line, but this is a guy that breaks tackles, makes explosive plays, and has all of the team's usage. So Omarion Hampton over 65.5 rushing yards. Lock it up.
For number 2 for Andrew Erickson, we're going to go to Philadelphia and the Eagles here. And the Eagles offense has been a little struggle bus, despite the fact that they're 4-0. We had a big conversation just yesterday on the program for the best bets. Go check that out. Terrell had a really good diatribe, and that's the only way I can describe it. It's a diatribe. So if you don't know what that word is, go look it up, learn something. Google machine's here to help you. So you think you might have cracked the code here potentially for a wager, Andrew. Let's talk about DeVonta Smith here and why he could have a big day against the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, I prefer a half glass full when looking at the Eagles because it really depends on which half you're looking at, if their passing game is doing anything or not. So DeVonta Smith is going to go over 45.5 receiving yards. Just based on the matchup. Patrick Surtain, we know, will lock up the number 1 wide receiver on the opposing offense, and that's going to be A.J. Brown. So even though he's going to be throwing his arms up, looking for flags, complaining he's not getting the football, well, DeVonta Smith's going to have the better matchup on paper from the slot. So I think he's going to see more targets and volume in the specific matchup. You just look at the number 2 receivers that have faced the Denver Broncos. They've been much more productive than the number 1s because of that really tough matchup. So although I usually am betting unders when it comes to DeVonta Smith when A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert are healthy, especially when it comes to his receptions prop, I think that he can be efficient with the more favorable matchup with an easier cornerback to go over 45.5 receiving yards, which is his lowest receiving yards prop since the beginning of last season. So it's really been depressed because of how inconsistent the Eagles' offense has been. But given the matchup, I really think that Smith can fly over this pretty easy.
All right, so DeVonta Smith we are in on. Also, the other thing we're in on, Hard Rock Bet. And right now is the time to download the app if you have not. They're the sponsor of our shows this year, so check them out. Again, Hard Rock Bet Sportsbook app is the best place to be making your wagers. You bet $5, you get $150 in bonus bets if that bet wins, plus all the winnings from that bet. So keep it simple, win that bet, go take some free money. And it's also our last show before this week's games on Sunday. So if you're looking for more insights on what you can bet, then you better head over to Hard Rock Bet Stats Hub right now, because on the app they have amazing stats there. You can follow Hurts has reached the end zone in 6 consecutive games against the AFC. You've also got stats like Buffalo's won 13 in a row at home. So those kind of stats you can parlay together even. Speaking of parlays, they've got boosts for parlays. They've got all kinds of amazing things, plus a profit boost for the Sunday games and Monday night. So there's new promos dropping every single day. So no matter what you want to bet, Hard Rock Bet can help you do that. And of course, make sure you download the app today and get betting, because those profit boosts are there for not only NFL, but also college football. So don't wait till Sunday. You might as well start on Saturday. Download the Hard Rock Bet Sports app today. Let's get to number 3 on the list here. And Welsh, we got a rookie wide receiver that you're teeing up. So let's talk about Tet McMillan.
Well, don't call him Tet. Call him Tetairoa, or his mom's going to come after you.
Yeah, she knows where I live. Listen, Mrs. McMillan, I'm waiting for you. Okay?
Well, my hand's up here. 56.5 is the receiving yard prop this week, and I like it. Dolphins rank 32 of 32 in cover grades over on PFF. If you're listening at home, that's not good. Also per PFF, I love this stat. Tetairoa McMillan It has, on average, 5.2 yards per route run against man coverage, which is first in the NFL for wide receivers. They're going up against a Miami defense that runs man coverage 31, almost 32% of the time, which is 10th most in the NFL. McMillan has also beat this receiving line in 3 of 4 matchups this season. Projected numbers, they're in favor, whether across both sites you're looking at. You're over 60 yards on most places that I have looked, so you're getting a little bit of extra juice there. This matchup works really well. They've got to get him the ball. So Tetairoa McMillan, 56.5 over receiving yards is bet number 3.
All right, so bet number 3 in the books for the Welsh. Let's get to bet number 3 here for Andrew Erickson. Erickson, let's talk about Jakobi Meyers. The number for him is 54.5 receiving yards. You want to go over or under?
I'm going to go over for Jakobi Meyers is the nickname I like to give him.
I think we need to workshop that more. I don't
Don't
know.
worry.
I don't know what else you could do, but that works.
What else am I supposed to work with? Don't worry. I have better names and fun puns coming up. So stay tuned.
Oh, good. Everybody,
Yes.
everybody get excited. All right, go ahead.
I mean, if you hate the-
I've
if you
never
hate
met
my
a guy who
picks,
has
at
no
least-
kids
at
yet
least
who
you'll be
has more dad
entertained.
jokes than Andrew Erickson. I just want to point that out. Always for years now, Andrew Erickson has come to the shows with the dad jokes. Go ahead, talk about the bet.
So the Colts lost their number 1 cornerback from the slot, Kenny Moore, a couple weeks ago, and they have been ripped up from the slot. Second most fantasy points per game to slot receivers. That's where Jakobi Meyers predominantly runs his routes. He posted a really strong target share last week in week 4, 33%. Also saw 59% of the team's air yards. And in fact, he was the targeted receiver on not 1, not 2, but all 3 of Geno Smith's interceptions last week. So you know that Geno Smith is not afraid to just try to jam targets to Jakobi Meyers. He's been over 54.5 receiving yards in 3 of his 4 games already this season. And if had one of those last targets not get intercepted, Jakobi Meyers would probably be 4 for 4 on his receiving yards prop. Brock Bowers is still kind of banged up, dealing with his knee injury. He's still struggling with this knee brace. So I think that means Meyers is going to be the number 1 pass catcher in a really favorable matchup. So yeah, give me the over.
Speaking of Myers, too, just want to point out, I think my favorite parlay of the week is going to be an interception one, and you and I talked about it yesterday. I'd like to add to it. I want to put Geno Smith along with Carson Wentz and Dylan Gabriel, and just all the picks. Pick City, that's the theme of the parlay. Pick City parlay. Pick City parlay, baby. We're coming for you. All right, speaking of prop bets, too, again, prop bet cheat sheets there for you for all of your betting needs. Again, it's over at the Betting Pros app. Just download the app today. That's all you got to do. Or just go to bettingpros.com/props. So whether it's passing, rushing, receiving, no matter what the stat category, you're going to see the best numbers, the best lines, and the projections for the overs or the unders based on our stat projections. So it's a great way to bet props. If you're new to it, you're watching us for the first time, use the tools. Don't be a tool. All right, let's get to Welsh. And let's talk about the Jets-Cowboys game, a game that should yield a fair amount of points. The Jets' total, I think, is very low. 22.5 against the Cowboys, I think, is kind of absurd. Cowboys defense just keeps giving up giant numbers to everybody. So how do you want to take that in, Welsh, and dish it out with a prop?
Yeah, well, my last two, we're getting into Stink Fest, where we start to get stinky. The last one is going to be my stink bet of the week, which we hit last week with Jalen Tolbert. And the reason...
Hey, I started him in the league, Welsh, and I was very happy. That that ball that Dak was trying to throw away that he caught, I was so proud of him.
He didn't have a catch in the first half, but we got him all in the second half, so we got the over, so we got that stink bet. The only reason that this is a stink bet is because it's behind Justin Fields and not his rushing yards. We're going to go Justin Fields pass yards, 187.5 over. This is an approved Betting Pros bet, by the way, if you check it out on the cheat sheet. And I think this is going to be pretty clear for everybody. Cowboys, they've given up to quarterbacks at least this number in each of their last 3 outings. They have not only had this number be beat, they've given up 298 yards or more in each of the 3. They're averaging over 300 yards passing to quarterbacks through all 4 games. So the first one, obviously, they did not go over this. The interesting thing about Fields is he's actually broken this 200 passing yard mark in 2 of 3 games played this season. This is all about how bad the Cowboys secondary and defense is. The Cowboys rank in like the bottom 5 to 7 in between league coverage on corners and running back. So wide receivers and running back coverage stinks. They've got Breece Hall. They've got Garrett Wilson. Projections, and the reason that Betting Pros does like this one is Pros projections have him over 200 passing yards. So the reason that it stinks is because it's Fields. Fields could obviously, throw 15 pass attempts. We know that's in a realm of possibility. But the secondaries and the coverage is so bad This gives an opportunity for Fields to get the ball in the air, probably going to give him more time to throw. Garrett Wilson is in line for a half-decent day, but we're going to go over the 187 passing yards to 188 plus on Justin Fields against this very porous Dallas defense.
All right, let's continue on here with the next pick on the board for Andrew Erickson. This time we're going to go to the London game with the Minnesota Vikings and Jordan Mason. So obviously we have Dylan Gabriel starting in that game. You got the Vikings who are staying over in the United Kingdom. So, Erickson, how does Jordan Mason equate for you to money in Week 5?
Taking the under on Jordan Mason and his receptions. Under 1.5 catches for Mason. I think that there's going to be a lot of unders in this game. Just looking at the really, really low total, you have Carson Wentz going up against Dylan Gabriel. And I think that the Vikings can kind of approach this with a pretty conservative game plan. I don't think they need to do anything extreme. If they can just play defense, rattle Gabriel, I think that they can escape with a 17-10, 17-7 type of win here in London. Mason took a backseat to Xavier Scott as a receiver out of the backfield among the running backs last week. Mason ran fewer routes than Scott did. He just threw 3 targets to Scott's 8 targets. And I honestly think a lot of these target numbers are just inflated because Carson Wentz had 54 dropbacks in that game against the Steelers. Like, that is not what the Minnesota Vikings want to do. Like, the less dropbacks Wentz has, the better, because the less times he drops back to throw, the less time he's likely to make a mistake and turn the ball over to a really stout Cleveland Browns defense. So the Browns have allowed just 3.5 receptions per game to running backs, which is the bottom 5 mark in the NFL. So given that Mason isn't the primary pass-catching back, I don't necessarily think that this is a matchup where they need to feature him, especially if the Vikings are playing with the lead. They are favorited. It isn't a neutral game site, but I think it'd be more of Mason getting rushing attempts than receptions out of the backfield. So I'm going to take the under.
Okay, so Scott was very active in that game last week, much to the chagrin of everybody. What the hell? Where'd that come from? Let's get to Welsh's pick, and let's stay in London here. Dylan Gabriel now under center, so we'll see how that works out. But we also have Cedric Tillman out for that game, so he's going to miss some time. That brings up Isaiah Bond, one of the hot free agents in the fantasy markets. So how can we cash in that fantasy when it comes to Isaiah Bond in this game?
Stink bet of the week. We are. It was Tolbert last week. We're going to Isaiah Bond. It feels
hey,
gross.
Man, if it smells like money, I'm in for the stink bet. I'm just putting it out there, baby.
That's right. You know what? And some cheese, it can taste great and can smell super nasty, and that's going to be the Isaiah Bond bet here. Receiving yards are 27.5. Why we like this, though, even though Gabriel isn't a quarterback, we had 6 targets last week, obviously with Flacco, but 6 targets last week for 58 yards from Bond. He ended up running 71% of routes, and this is a number I really like, running 27 routes on 37 dropbacks. And as you mentioned, Tillman is now out. He's Bond is listed as a starter. They also ended up using him in different spots. They put him in the backfield. They're going to line him up at wide receiver. Kind of a gadget playmaker for them. Obviously, they got Fana. They're high on these rookies. They're going all in on it. He also received, and hopefully this is going to carry over from Flacco to Gabriel, an almost 21% first read percentage. So you go and look at projections as well. We're over 40 on PFF. We're over, well over 30 on Fantasy Pro. So both projection systems that I like to look are really into this one. Receptions line between 2.7 and 3.5. But this is an offense that is going to also use a lot of play action. This is a playmaker when there are not a lot of playmakers out there. He had 6 targets. He's had, I think it's 10 targets over the last 2 games. He's moving up into this offense, and this is an incredibly, incredibly low number. So, yes, it's stinky, but it's along the lines of Tolbert. This is why I like it. I got to tell you, 2 other little parts of this. I really battled between doing the receptions at 2.5. That's a number that you like as well, but, I mean, Bond is a big playmaker. 1 catch, kind of like the Iaminer one last week. He could get this. And you want to play extra sneaky. I've seen 28.5 rushing and receiving because they use him out of the backfield. He's only had 1 rush this year. He had 1 rush for 9 yards. Would not be surprised, especially because I know the Vikings are first in DVOA, that if they try to get the ball in his hands a little bit more, he could rush. That might be another pivot. And to be honest with you, I think I might place that bet just in case because I already like the receiving yard total over, and that gives me 1 extra little bump on the rushing. So a couple different ways if you want to play in the mud for Isaiah Bond for my final bet this week.
I think I do. I kind of like it. The stinky bet of the week, it works for me, man. Let's go to another one, too, a player who's terrifically talented, but certainly the results have been a little stinky for the Cincinnati Bengals. Ja'Marr Chase. Why will the 62.5 finally be an over for Chase this week, Andrew?
Well, Ja'Marr Chase, guys, is averaging 165 receiving yards at home this season. Yes, he's only played one game, and this obviously is very tongue-in-cheek, but he tends to play better at home. Jake Browning is a much better quarterback at home than playing on the road when he's not facing the Denver Broncos and the Minnesota Vikings and a lot of these tough defensive matchups. He's facing the Detroit Lions, who are going to be without DJ Reed, one of their starting cornerbacks, and Terrion Arnold is banged up again with another injury. So I think this Lions secondary is susceptible to some big plays from Jamar Chase. We know that he's going to get a ton of volume, especially after last week when he was not getting nearly as much as The Rock. Talk about this A.J. Brown squeaky wheel. I'm looking at the Jamar Chase squeaky wheel, where the last time we saw him play at home, Jake Browning was looking for him on first read, second read, and the third read. And the other part of this that I want to highlight is a trend that I'm starting to pick up on is the Surtain clamp to prop champ. That's what I'm calling it, because every receiver that has faced Patrick Surtain the following week has gone over their receiving yards prop. And that number is always coming depressed because they have a bad week against the number one cornerback in the NFL. And this is a trend I like buying into because it's been bad receivers that have done it. Calvin Ridley went over his receiving yards prop the week after facing Patrick Surtain, and he has been terrible all season long. So it is a perfect 3-0. And with Jamar Chase getting this suppressed number because he went up against Patrick Surtain on Monday Night Football and everybody saw it, this is a value proposition for Jamar Chase. You're never going to see it this low at 62.5 receiving yards. So I am hammering the over. And, I mean, I'm probably going to alt-bet this, too, because I think that he goes over 100 yards.
I think somebody's going to the shed, Welsh. I think they're taking the ladder out.
Ladder that you're wanting to play?
It's fun to ladder bet players that are actually good, too.
It is. It is. Too bad the quarterback is Jake Browning. So let's go ahead to the touchdown scores for week 5 and our predictions there. Remember, you can go to bettingpros.com/touchdown if you're looking for the edge to bet these TDs. Our touchdown score report compares anytime touchdown stats to the prop bet odds and projections to help identify the very best in anytime touchdown bets. So again, bettingpros.com/touchdown. That's the place to get the touchdown score report. And I will kick things off here since I am on the leaderboard with 4 tutties on the year. And I feel pretty confident we get 2 for 2 this week. That'll be the way to go. Let's go with Garrett Wilson, plus 130 right now you can get for Garrett Wilson. New York Jets against the Dallas Cowboys. Look, there's one place that ball goes when Justin Fields throws it, and it goes to Garrett Wilson, folks. This is not rocket science. I like even for 2 touchdowns. You could get first half touchdown. You could play this up however you want in as many ways as you want. But Garrett Wilson, I think, at least gets 1 score here against the Dallas Cowboys secondary that's been absolutely atrocious. And Emeka Egbuka, I'm sticking with my Baker Mayfield upset special of the week, and Egbuka plus 135 himself. I think a pretty good bet to score a touchdown. He is a playmaker in that offense. Godwin's not quite up to speed. Evans is out. Egbuka will show up even against a tough Seattle defense. He is going to show up and make a play because that's what that man does. Welsh, let's talk about your anytime TD calls for week 5 in the NFL.
Yeah, and by the way, I wanted to make a note on the touchdown calls. We were talking about this off air. One thing we should have done in tracking was play ROI, but I don't know if people know this. We don't play minus touchdown bets whenever we do this. Every single week we have done a plus money bet. So just so everybody knows, when we say like, hey, this is how many touchdown calls, it's all plus money plays, and Joe's gotten 4 plus money plays, which is positive. So better way maybe in the future is we'll track it.
And if you have a minus, we've talked about this on the show. Like I think one of the first ones I got that first week was taking the anytime touchdown in the first half, right? Cutting them in half. Yeah. I do that a lot on the primetime shows. Erickson was making fun of me. He said, man, you're so good on the primetime parlays and the touchdown calls. I said, I'm like the anti Kirk Cousins, man. I can't show up on Sundays. But I'm so good when the lights are on and I got the standalone games.
Where does that mean that you shop though? If Kirk Cousins shops at Kohl's, what's the opposite of Kohl's?
I guess Ralph Lauren. Like I don't know. I'm very spiff. I do like the
Nordstrom Rack.
Nordstrom Rack.
Oh, okay.
More of an Armani guy.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what it is. But I just wanted to make that as like a little caveat just because like we were talking about it and it was on my mind. All right, so getting to my touchdown calls, all plus money plays. I mentioned him before, Tetairoa McMillan. I am going to play him at plus 140 this week. I kind of already gave you all the stats as far as man coverage goes. Dolphins have also given up 7 passing touchdowns through 4 games and at least 1 in every single game. You got Chuba a little bit more banged up. It is Tetairoa McMillan and then a bunch of other dudes. So I like Tetairoa to score a touchdown. And then probably my actually favorite this week is almost 2-1 Michael Pittman. Daniel Jones, 5th most efficient quarterback in the NFL against zone coverage. Jones has 454 passing yards off of play action this year, which is first among quarterbacks. The Raiders defense ranks 30th in yards per play allowed with play action. And by the way, Michael Pittman is targeted at the 9th highest rate among wide receivers against zone coverage, and the Raiders play zone coverage at the highest rate in the NFL. Michael Pittman, plus 190 anytime touchdown.
All right, Andrew Erickson, let's cap off 2 more touchdown calls for week 5.
Going to continue to roll with my guy, Jamar Chase, at plus 160 to score a touchdown. I just think he's going to have a monster game, so going to go with that. And then my other player is a guy who caught 2 touchdowns on Monday Night Football, Darren Waller at plus 225. He was put on earth to do 2 things, make rap albums and catch touchdowns. So Darren Waller for me in the red zone, that's his role in this offense. I don't know how many snaps he's going to play, but when the Dolphins are going to score, he's going to be part of the game plan. They're facing the Carolina Panthers, one of the worst defenses overall, and against tight ends. Hunter Henry scored a tight end against them last week with the Patriots. So Darren Waller, the weeks where he's healthy are very precious. We don't know how many games he's going to last all season long, but I think that his touchdown chances are still pretty good, especially after catching 2 last week. So
you imagine putting U.S. dollars on Darren Waller in this day and age? It's amazing. I'm here for it. Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, certainly. And of course, don't forget, everybody, you could also follow us on the Betting Pros app. When you download that, use all the tools. Don't be a tool. And of course, you could follow these tools right here on the Betting Pros app. Just put our names in right there to see what we're in on this week. And, of course, subscribe to the YouTube channel and the podcast, wherever you get your pods. That'll do it for us. But the story of the game goes on. For the Welsh and Andrew Erickson, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids. Enjoy Week 5 in the NFL.